Artificial intelligence and all the things that are going to change the job market over the next 5 to 10 years dramatically. So with that, I'd like each of the panelists, if you could just take a couple minutes and introduce yourself. Please don't go into your presentation, just introduce yourself, and then we'll go through with, I've got a couple questions, and we'll allow each of you to speak. Let's start with you, Ty.
My name is Tyrone Short. I'm the COO of Southern Imaginations, LLC.
My name is Ashley Scott. I am the co-founder of the Freedom Georgia Initiative and the communications manager at the Russell Innovation Center for Entrepreneurs in Atlanta.
Hi, my name is Marissa Curry, and I'm an incoming software engineer at CoStar.
Hi, I'm Darren Watts. I'm a lawyer and a strategist. I'm the chair of public policy at a law firm called Lewis Brisbois.
Yeah, it's the technology panelists. We hope that they can know how to turn on a microphone. So sorry, no, I'm just kidding. Everybody did fine there. So, all right, the first question for each of you is, in your world, because each of you are in technology, but you come from a little bit different look, a little bit different approach, and a little bit different problems and a little bit different solutions. So give us just your story about, something that's happened in your world that has made you commit your lifetime and energy to solving that problem. And let's start with Ty again, I guess.
Say that again, Brady. You took me too fast. Say it one more time.
What are you talking about?
Ask that question again.
Oh, I'm just kidding.
How did I get here?
Yeah, tell your story about why you're involved in this industry and what are some possible solutions to the challenges that the people in your particular community face.
The short answer is I've always been able to do what I'm able to do. I don't know how. I was born with the ability to understand technology. I was the little kid at Radio Shack soldering boards together. Like, Radio Shack was my Toys R Us. I know y'all don't know what that is, but it used to exist, I'm saying. So I've always been able to do this. And as I got older, as someone said earlier, when you're very smart, you can do well for yourself. And something along the way changed my mind about doing well just for me. I needed to put myself in a position because I feel my ability is God-given, and it would be a waste for me to just go get a job at Microsoft or follow some of my friends who made the MySpaces and all the other places and just get rich. I'm impacted by when I see people who look like me who didn't see people that look like me when they were younger. I grew up in rural Mississippi. Before the internet, I got a public school education. I come from a dirt road. My mama still live on that dirt road. And that reality, like someone should have come back to get me, and no one ever did. And I want to not be that person. I want a little young brother who is, got them thick glasses and these big ears and wishes there was a Radio Shack to know that he can do whatever it is that he wants to do.
Excellent.
My work is in advocacy, community outreach, marketing, and sales, and my background comes from being a woman of color who was never able to be a part of these technologies and innovations. And what really struck me was when George Floyd was murdered, was around how do we begin to make a world that's more equitable, right? And around that came to my mind that having land, having sovereignty around our food, having a political system that we are in control of, looking at who our leaders are on our city level, understanding who our decision makers really made me passionate about how do we change the problems in the world, and technology and innovation is a key way to change the issues of equity, right? When we think about inclusion, when we think about the prison industrial complex, it will be AI that continues to either help us or continue to keep us down the current path that we're on. And so innovation and technology is a way to really level the playing field. And as an entrepreneur who's been an entrepreneur my entire career, I understand that being tech-enabled is going to take us to the next level as Black business owners. So I'm really committed to helping our communities of color that are underserved and underrepresented see the power and promise of technology and innovation, especially things like artificial intelligence and machine learning, and how we integrate that into our businesses and how we are able to take those profits and share prosperity in our communities because of it.
Thank you.
So I am Gen Z, so I was kind of the first wave of those educated with technology implemented in the classroom. So I had the privilege of being able to participate in FIRST robotics and also take AP Computer Science principles. And currently I'm a senior in college majoring in computer science. And what I can say about my experience is, as I've gone along, there hasn't been many people that look like me, despite there being like a large push for, oh, get women in tech, tech education. There hasn't been many people that look like me. And what I've been able to do with my platform is just like being a person that takes up space and is in those rooms. And that has led me to be like, I founded the Girls Who Code Club at my HBCU. I was the first thank you. I was the first Wellington HBCU scholar for a PE firm. So I've always been interested in finance and tech. So I had an internship as doing investment technology. So I was the first person from my school to ever work at Wellington Management as an investment technology intern. And I also did robotics, took the class, but it's always been meaningful for me to be in these spaces, because I remember the first time I ever participated in a STEM camp, I was the only woman and person of color, and since then I knew I wanted to stick with it because I really enjoyed building things, and I just really want my lasting impact. Because as you mentioned, like, oh, it's one thing to go to Microsoft, like, yeah, I'm going to a big tech company, but it's like, to have that lasting impact and like serve your community is something I really find important. So that is why, like, currently I'm a tutor. I tutor STEM subjects. I took a gap year where I worked at AmeriCorps and I did STEM subjects on Native American reservations and helped them receive STEM education. So it's really just continuing to push STEM education forward, not only in my day-to-day life, but also like doing outreach, and I find that to be very important.
Hi, again, I'm Darren Watts. I'm a lawyer by trade. I'm not a technology person per se. I practice at the intersection of law, policy, and politics, though, and have always lived my life and dedicated my practice to having in the corner of my mind how policies that I'm trying to shape, which is what I do a lot, whether it's in healthcare, financial services, or now technology, how that's going to impact our community, and hopefully to be uplifting people and helping solve problems. The reason that I've gotten so into artificial intelligence is because this is the next coming, it's already here. It's the second part of the tech revolution that's going to change everything. And it's going to transform lives, transform how everything is done here. And what we often have as a community is we'll know something's coming or have an idea, but not really be finding our voice. And there's an opportunity now to not come into this thing on the back end talking about what has happened that wasn't fair and how we need to remedy these things and let us in and do this and that. No. Now's the time where every sector of society is figuring this out. They're drinking from the fire hose. We all are. Even the tech developers, because they're competing with each other. to figure it out. So, so they'll think they've got something, and then they're looking over their shoulder, and somebody else just created the next level of it. So we're all trying to understand this, trying to figure out how this can be used in beautiful ways to change our lives, and in fact can really help us overcome some of our struggles. We'll talk about that later on, but it also has lots of dangers and risks that we've got to guard against. Well, now's the time for us as a community, and that's why I've worked with Brady and with Kevin, with the SCLC, GPI, and other wonderful organizations on healthcare and other things. That's why I'm here, because I was talking to them about this, saying we've got to all get together and make sure that people who are trying to help our community are here early, while the rules are being written, while we're chopping all this up, because there are wonderful opportunities for us economically and otherwise, efficiency and all that, but there's also great dangers. And especially, we talk about bias. We'll talk about that a little bit later. That's why I'm here. I'm the head of the AI task force at my law firm. I'm galvanizing clients that are corporate and nonprofit to all get to the table and try and do something positive as these rules get written, not just in Washington, but all over the world.
Excellent. Now, as the best technology inclusion panel that we've seen in years continues, Darren, I would like to go back to you and say there's a concern that the folks in Congress making all the rules that are going to govern AI and all these other emerging technologies come from an era where the paradigm was completely different than, say, the Gen Z. And I'm going to have you continue with that question about what your generation thinks and what they think should be happening instead. But we'll start with Darren, and then we'll come back this way.
And what was the question again, Brady?
Oh, there's a perception that the people, the policymakers at the highest level, are maybe not connected well enough to these technologies and how they're going to affect the younger generations, and that how as a policy guy, how can we, number one, maybe not so be afraid of that, or should we be terrified?
We ought to be terrified by that, and they're terrified by it. I'll tell you, I was at an event, and sometimes at these things, folks will leave that important senator who's the chairman of an important committee on this issue alone because they don't want to bother them too much. I walked right up to Senator Durbin, chair of the Judiciary. Hey, man, let's talk about AI. I said, what's going to go down on this? And how do we make sure that the community's at the table? And he said, well, you got plenty of time because we're not doing anything right now. He said, we don't even understand it. Anybody tells you up here that they understand it, they're lying to you. He said, so we're trying to figure it out. So what I would recommend you do is get organized and make sure that you and the organizations that think like you boot up, learn with all the rest of us, and find your voice. Get in here with us and talk about what opportunities you see that you want to make sure that we leave open, and what guardrails you think we need to put up. I loved his honesty. It was refreshing.
Excellent.
Yeah, and when I think about AI and then the current legislature, if anyone has been following the TikTok news, Congress and the Senate, they don't really understand technology. I don't know who's advising them, because when they had the CEO of TikTok, they were asking him very irresponsible questions. Like, they were like, what is Wi-Fi? And as a person who's Gen Z watching that, we grew up with Wi-Fi. We know what Wi-Fi is. We know what an IP address is. We know what a DNS is. So we're watching the people who make our legislative decisions, who are like a lot older than us, not know what these things are, and we are just like, we want to take the conversation to our own hands. So when it comes to like using AI and utilizing it, I think it's important, especially in the education sphere, and and most importantly, higher education to be aware of it and learn, because I think it can be used as a tool for good. I think there's many benefits, and it's getting integrated in all spaces. I remember at my internship, they were talking about how they wanted to use AI when you were on the trading floor and to put everyone's notes together for the morning meetings and to see if they could track trends. So I think that AI can be used for good, but it does need to have certain regulations and protocols, but people need to be very highly informed on what they're talking about, because when people think about AI, coming from a technical background, it is not gonna replace software engineers right now. I'm just gonna let everyone know that it's not gonna replace us. We're not there yet. Yes, we have large language models, but we are not at the point where it can write code, because I've tried to use code like ChatGPT to help me with my code. It doesn't do it correctly. It's not gonna be able to do it for a very long time. So I think it's we don't need to approach it with fear rather than deep introspection and thought, and really become educated and listen to the thought leaders. And I think that's the best way to adequately use AI in the day-to-day, because I use it in my day-to-day life as a computer science major and incoming software engineer, and I think Congress could also educate themselves on it as well.
If I could shift gears a little bit, you're involved in ag tech. You've been doing it for quite a while. It's not something that a lot of people understand, that you're combining agriculture, farming, with technology. Tell us a little bit more about what's happening on that front and how the communities we support can actually kind of leapfrog the issues between non-white farmers that are not being able to participate in a lot of government programs, how they can just leapfrog and use this as an opportunity to get into ag tech, maybe the next generation of farmers, and what they should do.
Well, I want to be clear that there is no leapfrogging, because ag tech is so expensive that it has the same traditional barriers to access that any Black American, any person who's trying to start a business is going to face. Ag tech is available right now, and there are many entrepreneurs and businesses that are leveraging things like drones, cameras, smart technology that tells you, do you have enough water in your hydroponics and plant-based, these grow houses, right? So we are taking agriculture from not necessarily only being row crops and traditional farming, but looking at growing indoors. There's a lot of technology that allows people to begin to grow plants in their homes now. And we have to take advantage of that individually, but as a farmer and a traditional farmer, someone who has access to land, they typically don't have access to the capital to be able to invest in these new technologies. So I do want us to look at how we can create and utilize some of these crowdfunding opportunities, because that's the area of opportunity more than anything. When we start looking at farming and ag tech, this is an investable class for us, so that when we start talking about what are some of the things that we can invest in, this is an area that can also provide food security for our communities. When we start thinking about famine and just not having access to fresh, healthy vegetables and fruits in our local neighborhoods, these indoor grow houses can produce no matter what the weather is outside. It's pest resistant, right? Because we're not growing our crops directly into the soil and having to compete with the drought and having to compete with the different viruses and diseases that plants face. And so that technology is going to allow us to grow better yields, is going to allow us to have better overall returns on our investment in our food supplies. And using this technology, it will continue to get better over time and allow us to better predict and plan for our food and our future as communities. Because right now, when we think about how we engage with our food system, many of us are disconnected, right? We don't know who the farmer is that grows our food. Well, ag tech can give us the ability to identify that supply chain, to know where your tomato comes from, to know where your strawberry comes from. And so when we start thinking about how we can participate in the innovation and the technology happening on the farm, it really is an opportunity to invest in these farmers so that they can begin to utilize these technologies, because many of them are brand new. We are at the cutting edge. Right. So I would say, think about how you can begin to invest through crowdfunding and different platforms that can be an avenue to ag tech.
Thank you. Tyrone, I'd like to take a little bit different question with you, and that's that your organization has really done some innovative things with technology and trying to support communities that are often left behind, especially technologically. So could you tell us, why did you pick the approach that you did, and how have you been successful at that, so that maybe other people can see, wow, that we can really do this in our community?
So just to give people a brief overview, and I've been working on my elevator pitch, what my company is essentially plug and play infrastructure. Fractional CFO, fractional CEOs, people who can handle internal business, because what I see in our community is we know how to hustle, we know how to get money. What we don't know how to do is sustain. You have a great idea, you will push it as hard as you can, and you won't be thinking about projections, you won't be thinking about cost and fuel, you'll just go get money. And then you'll get it fast and easy, and guess what? Easy come, easy go. So what we decided to do was, or what we're trying to do, is encourage people to stop thinking that way. We invested in culture change. I want to change people's minds about technology, because Sister Scott and I were talking while we were having lunch, and innovation says, let's just keep going. And as a systems engineer, my thing is, how do we stop this thing? Where are the brakes? Where are the doors? Y'all keep putting more motor in it, y'all keep putting more wheels on it, but how do we stop it? And so the example that I came up with that we were using is that the harness, the safety harness, predated the advent of the automobile. The seatbelt patent didn't come around until like 60, 70 years after the automobile did. The dude at Volvo gave it away. He said, listen, it's more important that we save lives than I make money off it, so here, start putting this in your cars. Seatbelts didn't become law until the 80s. So where is the seatbelt for AI? What exists right now that 60 years from now, when her kids are like, what were they thinking? What is that? And so my company works to try to help people figure out that that's important to them to know. You need to know how these things fail. And so when you go to Best Trust and say, I want money, my firm is who says, let me put these places, these policies and procedures and structure in place so that when you go to Best, they know you're going to take care of that money. Like, the money's there. We work with federal funding, private funding. You can get money. There's more money available to people for invest than that has existed since like maybe the 60s. Like almost $500 billion. They having meetings about how to spend it. The COVID money that came down, you could just apply and get it. But more money is coming available, but you can't just say, hey, I have a need anymore. You can have a great idea. Ag tech sounds amazing. You cannot go get those people to give you money now without having a certain structure in place to go get it. And once we figured that out, that's what we started to help companies and organizations, people who provide childcare. Everybody needs childcare. There are more children than adults in the country. But they don't have basic things that they need, and we need them. Who saw during the pandemic that teachers need to make $1 million? I was homeschooling my baby like, please get this girl out of here. You know what I mean? Like, but those people make less than people who work at McDonald's. Why would anybody think that that's okay or acceptable? I won't go get a job in childcare, even though the entire world needs it, because it won't pay me what McDonald's will pay me. So we got into that niche industry. Particularly, we help any and everybody, but we especially work with people who help other people. And they need those plug-and-play infrastructure pieces to keep going and provide services that we all need. Everybody needs an IT person.
Okay, excellent. Now we'll do a bit of a speed round here, if you guys don't mind. We hear a lot about, from the news media, because if it bleeds, it leads, the horrors of what's going to happen with AI, and we've seen it in basically all the science fiction movies that talk about AI, the horrible things. So, especially from an inclusion standpoint, when it comes to AI, what's something that we should be maybe looking at from a fear standpoint, but also what are some things, let's end on a positive note, like there's going to be some great things that come out of that, and Ty, we'll start with you.
The simplest, easy things that we struggle with, like back in the day, you could get a lot of things done if you could write a really well-worded letter. How about we can even a playing field by simply saying, hey, Bing, write me a nice letter to my creditors and let them know I'm down in my back and I can't pay my bill this month. And Bing will write you something so sweet that you won't even believe it. Send it off, and they won't know nothing. They won't know none of the wiser. You can say, hey, Bing, write me a letter as if I'm a Harvard graduate using that language and help me get this business plan written. And Bing will say, sure, Ty, I'll help you out as best I can. Spit me out a whole business plan. That's AI. For me, it's a tool. Like Sister say, it won't write the code for you, but if you're feeling lazy, you can say, hey, Bing, write me an upload script. And it'll write you enough of it where you can fix it and tweak it and make it work. So, like she says, not anything that you can, it's not going to replace the brain. The brain has 86 billion neurons. It's a complex structure. Raise your hand if you can tell your heart to stop beating. You can't do it. It's a lot going on up here. We are superior, but we do have to evolve and adapt.
So 1.8 million jobs will probably be lost by 2025, but there will be 2.3 million new jobs in AI. So it's really about reskilling and learning how to harness the power of AI. And so some of the things that I'm really proud of is what we're doing at the Russell Innovation Center for Entrepreneurs by helping to start the conversation in our communities that we don't have to be afraid of AI. Our workforce just has to figure out how to harness its power. And so we're doing things like creating a mobile AI and manufacturing bus to go to rural communities and underserved communities and Black communities, high schools and elementary schools, and to begin to expose our communities to artificial intelligence and machine manufacturing technology. Because if we can learn how to utilize it to be more efficient in our businesses, then we can actually grow our bottom lines and create more new jobs that allow our human creativity to flourish, right? We can create new ideas and intellectual property when we take our hands off of some of the minutia that AI can actually take care for us. Even when we think about marketing, right? So many marketers are afraid that people are going to lose their jobs because I can go to ChatGPT and I can write out my social media for a year. I can write out my blog articles. But let me tell you about a time when I used ChatGPT and it spelled Alonzo Herndon's name wrong, right? So you always have to have the human effect even when you are utilizing AI. So I would encourage anyone to just become educated and to look for organizations in your communities that are doing this work. Learn coding, learn the different technology skills that you are going to need for the future.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you said about learn coding, because that is one thing. There's this book called Industries of the Future, and as to your point, yes, jobs are going to be going away, but there's going to be new jobs. So I think it's highly important, especially for my generation, to become technical. I think it won't be like coding won't be like a niche thing. It will be like an everyday thing that everyone will need to know how to code, or be in some aspects be highly technical, and that really means relying on your STEM education, which is really important. And there's a lot of free resources, like there's Free Code Camp. There's also like YouTube as well, and even ChatGPT, you can ask it to make you a study plan. Like, I want to learn JavaScript in 2 weeks, or like I want to learn JavaScript in a month, and it will give you a detailed plan, everything you need to study to learn JavaScript, which is a highly marketable skill. And that's how I think that AI can help people.
Well, if you got 4 panelists up here, and this is how I'd like to have it too, those 3 can talk about beauty, I'll talk about the beast a little bit. All right?
As usual, right?
because there's so much beauty to be harnessed, you know, and that we hope help society from all this. But there are...
That's your trigger warning, right?
Yeah, there are risks, and there are things that we need to be concerned about and put up guardrails for. The top 4 areas, I'll just say real quick, you know, are obviously data protection, cybersecurity, and things like that. Terrible things can happen when people can go in and manipulate things, right? The second that I hear the most is bias. And you'll recall from the last panel, someone was talking about unconscious bias within the medical field. Well, gosh, there's all these things that are learned, you know, that they're embedded, and it results in bias. Well, if we're talking about machine learning and data, where are they getting all the data from? Because you've heard the term garbage in, garbage out. Well, I've got a cautionary tale on that. The FTC has already said that you know, there is no AI exception to the law. So they're, you know, they see everybody struggling to learn and understand, but they're going to be enforcing the law as it is right now, just to try and put some brakes on. As you were saying, to put some seatbelts on. And recently what they did was, and they're really concerned about all the facial recognition, biometrics, and AI powered facial recognition stuff. The headline of what they did with Rite Aid tells you everything you need to know. Rite Aid banned from using AI facial recognition after FTC says retailer deployed technology without reasonable safeguards. FTC says Rite Aid technology falsely tagged consumers, particularly women and people of color, as shoplifters. So what they did at Rite Aid, and it's reasonable, they wanted to figure out who all the troublemakers were who had been there. Somebody had been shoplifting, had fights, whatever had happened. You know, maybe some of the clerks got their picture on with their camera phone, maybe the surveillance cameras had their photo or whatever it is. They said, well, hey, let me try and create a database of all the offenders that have been in our stores, so when they come back, we've got an alarm and we can, you know, protect ourselves and protect our consumers. Well, garbage in, garbage out. If the pictures aren't good, or if you're buying from a developer who's got false positives all over the place and whose technology isn't working right, what's going to happen is they're falsely tagging folks, embarrassing them, kicking them out of stores, calling the police on them, and the like for 10 years. That's the bias part that ought to scare everybody, and where we ought to be asking the questions. How do we hold the users responsible too out there, the corporate users, whoever it is, to hold their developers' feet to the fire, make sure that they're testing and that they're following up when they have problems, so that, and how do we make sure that what's embedded in these systems isn't doing harm?
Excellent. Did you want to say again?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, and that leads into the intersection of AI and cryptography, because the whole thing with cryptography and the blockchain is you own your own information. And when it comes about like our own digital identities, it's like we want to. I worked for a startup that it was a little bit ahead of its time, but it was doing decentralized identifiers. So it was taking people's personal information, giving them a code, and it was held on the blockchain. So it was basically like your digital wallet for the whole entire internet. And so I think something important is to think about like using AI with blockchain technology so that people can hold their data and also the ethics of computer science as well, because I know most computer science majors, I know I was, where we take an ethics class, and applying those same ethics that we learn while in undergrad to the development of our products is also very important.
There's a paper that we wrote, facial recognition technology at FSIC, and one of the things that we posited in that is that these AI models that are biased to any degree, none of that's going to change until more people of color are involved in the training of the AI and developing it and coding it. And the same could be said for every industry, that more people that look like the people on this panel, that they are going to be involved in the decision-making at the highest levels, from the executive level to the board and to all the middle management and everything like that, then we'll see some change. But I don't know when we're going to get there, but hopefully we will. So we'll end, because I know there's some people that our flagship panel coming up is we call it the DEI panel, but it's basically about reverse discrimination lawsuits. But I have some news for you, is that I am an AI-generated moderator, and Brady's been stuffed underneath this for about 20 minutes now, so he wants to get out. And also I'm a deep fake, so we got those things that are not going for us. But anyway, thank you to my panelists. It was excellent. Could we have everyone stand up real quick? No, I'm serious. Okay, and then clap a couple times. So you guys got a standing ovation. Best panel ever. Thank you, everybody. We're going to take a few minutes to set up this last panel. It's going to be amazing. So please stick around, and then we'll see you in a few minutes.